I was driving down County Road 6 late at night after a huge fight with my husband. My eyes were filled with tears and I had no idea where I was going. The road felt endless and empty, like the world had forgotten me. I finally pulled over, crying in my car for hours, feeling completely alone. My chest hurt from all the emotions, and I just wanted a place where I could stop thinking. That's when I decided to find a hotel, any hotel, just so I wouldn't have to keep driving into the darkness.
After driving a little longer, I saw a small old hotel on the side of the road. It looked cheap and tired, but I didn't care. The front desk worker barely spoke and handed me a key. My room smelled dusty and cold. I threw my bag on the dirty couch and went to take a hot shower, hoping the warm water would calm my shaking body. For a moment, I felt safe, but that feeling didn't last long. I laid down on the stiff bed, staring at the ceiling. I was exhausted, both in my body and in my mind. I have suffered from sleep paralysis for years, and it always happens when I am emotionally overwhelmed. I told myself it wouldn't happen tonight, but after a few hours of deep sleep, I suddenly woke up, unable to move. My eyes were open, but my body was frozen. My chest felt like something heavy was pressing down on it. I could barely breathe. The air in the room felt cold and sharp against my skin. Then I noticed something wrong. The bathroom was completely dark. I always leave the light on when I sleep. I clearly remembered turning it on. The darkness in that doorway felt thick, like something was hiding inside it. I tried to force my body to move, but I couldn't. Suddenly, I felt cold air blow onto my face, like someone was breathing on me. The windows were closed. My eyes slowly moved upward toward the ceiling vent. At first, there was nothing. Then, two glowing green eyes appeared inside the dark vent, staring directly at me. The vent cover slowly bent outward with a soft metal sound. Dust fell onto my pillow. A bald head slowly came out of the vent. His skin was pale and smooth, like plastic. His breathing was wet and heavy, echoing inside the vent. He didn't blink, he just watched me like I was prey. His shoulders forced their way out, making cracking sounds. His arms were too long, and his fingers were thin and dark at the tips. Slowly, he reached toward my face. I was sweating, shaking, but I couldn't move. His finger stopped just inches from my nose, and I could feel cold coming from his skin. He blinked and whispered in a rough, broken voice, "Most people scream and leave, but you stayed. I like that." His breath smelled old and rotten. My mind was screaming, but my body was still trapped. I thought this was how I was going to die, alone in a cheap hotel room. Suddenly, lightning flashed outside the window. My body snapped awake, and I screamed. The bathroom light was on. The vent was closed. The room was empty. My heart was pounding so hard, it felt like it would explode. I didn't grab my bag. I ran straight out to my car and stayed there until the sun came up. 3 weeks later, I searched that hotel online. One person said they felt watched from the vent. Another said they dreamed about a bald man. I had never told anyone. Even now, sometimes when I lie in bed, I feel cold air fall onto my face, and I know something still remembers me. I was driving west on Highway 417 when the snowstorm hit without warning. One moment the road was clear, and the next it was completely gone behind thick, blowing snow. The wind pushed my car from side to side, and I could barely see past my headlights. My gas was running low, and my phone had no signal. I felt like I was trapped in a white, frozen nightmare with no way out. Through the storm, I saw a flickering sign on the side of the road. It read, "Night Rest Hotel, 2 kilometers." The sign was crooked and swinging in the wind like it was barely holding on. I searched it on my phone and felt my stomach drop. Every result said the hotel was closed, but behind me, the storm had already swallowed the highway. I had no choice but to turn toward it. The dirt road leading to the hotel was full of ice and deep holes. Trees leaned in close on both sides, like they were watching me. When I finally reached the building, it looked abandoned. Paint was peeling, windows were dark, and there wasn't a single car in the parking lot. Still, the neon sign above the entrance was glowing, buzzing weakly in the snow. Inside, the air smelled like mold and rust. The lights were dim and yellow. An old woman sat behind the desk, slowly crocheting. Her skin was gray and her eyes looked empty. She didn't speak. She only slid a rusty key across the desk and pointed at a torn sign that said $10 per night. Upstairs, the hallway was long and quiet. The carpet was stained and damp. My room was cold and smelled bad, but I was too tired to care. I locked the door, laid down on the bed with my clothes still on, and fell asleep almost right away. I woke up in the middle of the night, covered in sweat. My heart was racing for no reason. Then I heard footsteps outside my door, followed by low whispers. It sounded like more than one person. My body froze as fear filled my chest. I slowly moved to the door and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty, but I knew someone had been there. Suddenly, I saw movement near the stairs. A head quickly pulled back into the darkness when it realized I was looking. Someone had been watching me. I slammed the door and locked it. A few seconds later, 3 soft knocks hit the wood, then silence, then whispers, over and over again, all night long. Every time I looked through the peephole, no one was there. I stayed frozen, waiting for something horrible to happen. When morning came, sunlight filled the room. My door was wide open. My bag was on the floor. My clothes were everywhere. And on my bed, right where I had been sleeping, were muddy footprints, like someone had stood over me while I slept. I didn't even look for the old woman. I grabbed my things and ran to my car. The storm was gone, and the road looked normal again. But I knew one thing for sure. Whatever was in that hotel had let me leave, and I never want to know why. I was 34 years old when I took over my grandfather's small roadside hotel in Montana. It sat alone near a dead stretch of highway, surrounded by snowy woods and quiet mountains. Most nights were slow and silent, and that winter night was no different. I was half asleep behind the front desk when the door suddenly opened and cold air rushed inside. A man walked in, brushing snow off his shoulders, but what stood out the most was that both of his hands were buried deep inside his coat pockets, like he was hiding something. The man looked to be in his late 40s, with tired eyes and a blank expression that made it hard to read him. He stared at me for several long seconds before finally speaking. His voice was calm, but something about it felt wrong. He asked for a room on the top floor, one with a view of the mountains. I nodded and told him that room 312 was open, even though a strange feeling had started crawling up my spine. When I slid the register across the counter and asked him to sign in, he didn't move. He just kept staring at me. Then he said he needed to use the bathroom first and asked me to bring the book up to his room instead. I didn't like it, but I didn't want to make him angry. I grabbed the key and walked him upstairs, noticing how he never once took his hands out of his pockets the entire time. When we reached room 312, I unlocked the door and told him I would be back in a few minutes with the register. He stepped inside and slammed the door behind him so hard it made the walls shake. For a moment, I just stood there, wondering if I had just made a huge mistake, my mind filled with thoughts of what he might be hiding in his pockets. After a few minutes, I forced myself to go back upstairs with the register. The hallway was silent, and when I reached his door, I could hear water running inside. I knocked, and he told me to come in. The room was warm and filled with steam from the bathroom. He stood at the sink with his back to me, slowly washing his hands like nothing was wrong. At first, I thought I was just being paranoid, but then I noticed something dark in the white sink. As the water ran, it mixed with red stains and went down the drain. My stomach dropped. I took a step closer and saw that the stains were blood. There was far too much of it for a simple cut. The man dropped the bar of soap on the floor and bent down to pick it up. That was when I saw his fingernails. Thick, dried blood was stuck underneath them. He didn't have a single wound on his hands. That blood belonged to someone else. In that moment, I understood why he refused to show his hands. He stood back up and slowly turned toward me with a wide smile on his face. His eyes were calm, almost happy. In a soft voice, he said, "Some stains don't come out unless you scrub real deep." My legs felt weak. I couldn't move or speak. Every part of me knew I was standing in front of a killer. He wiped his wet hands on my jeans, leaving dark marks, then picked up his coat. He stepped closer to me, so close I could smell soap and something rotten on his breath. He whispered, "I just needed to use your washroom." His voice was calm, but it felt like a threat. Before leaving, he looked at me one last time and said, "You seem like the kind who knows when to stay quiet. Good." Then he walked out of the room and disappeared down the stairs. I stood there, staring at the blood in the sink, knowing I had just met something far worse than a stranger. To this day, no one has ever been caught, and whatever he did that night was never found. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe my channel. See you on next videos. Till then, goodbye.